Technology, consumerism, and the proliferation of popular culture have rendered reason, subjectivity, and philosophical ideas meaningless in Don DeLillo's White Noise. And characters have moved beyond what Jack Gladney, the first-person narrator, calls the great old human gullibilities. DeLillo's entire career has a postmodern sensibility and overt awareness of electronic media and multinational capitalism and Americanness that circles the globe and blurs political differences. Jack Gladney lives in a world where identity and ego have been deconstructed and meshed with electronic images and sounds, where reality can only be digested through sound bites and news tickers, where subjectivity has disappeared. Regardless of the lens we use, narrator Jack Gladney is a paradox bent on finding something authentic while his search is subverted beneath advertising slogans. We must begin there. MasterCard, Visa, American Express, he says, in the middle of a conversation about death. How does a reader begin to assess this dichotomy? The French post-structuralist philosopher Jean Baudrillard can, to some extent, bring DeLillo and White Noise to mind immediately. Baudrillard's claims about reality, identity, and meaning in a society where technology or white noise is ever present beg for inclusion in this analysis and form a line where psychoanalysis and deconstruction begin to overlap. This is the basis of my analysis. While I believe that psychoanalysis and deconstruction can provide some insight to DeLillo's major themes, the postmodern citizen is caught up in the play of images and spectacles and simulacra that have little or no connection to an external reality, and, I would submit, no connection to an interior reality. Social and political norms and reality itself, however we frame that reality, are tenuous ideas here. Simulacra is the mesmerizing narcotic of Jack Gladney's world, the mysticism of the Toyota Celica, the religion of consumerism and media that separates us from our true selves. The postmodernist eschews the modernist search for truth, and Gladney tries to straddle a metaphorical fence between the two phases. He is interested in meaning, but consistently surrenders to the noise. This is Baudrillard's end of interiority. To that end, it is important to look at the book through the aforementioned theories while realizing that the two might be intertwined throughout the text. But without some blending of the two, and certainly without including Baudrillard, neither psychoanalysis nor deconstruction can go deep enough to unwind DeLillo's true thematic concerns. And the theories, when standing alone, cannot be effectively applied to the entire text. It might be suggested from the outset that categories have disappeared in White Noise. DeLillo's text speaks directly to the idea that political and cultural regimes, having imposed repressive categorical orders on the world, are no longer a concern. If these repressive categories were induced through the language of those in power, then the deconstructionists, beginning in the 1960s, wanted to tear that language down, to seek the place where words might shed the influence of those regimes. But is this endeavor necessary for the citizens of DeLillo's fictional town, Blacksmith? The people who inhabit Blacksmith are awash in the flow of information, hypnotized by channels of control so widespread and dispersed that no single authoritative father figure is necessary. DeLillo highlights the precipitous nature of history, reason, and Western thought in the opening pages simply by describing the architecture of Blacksmith. There are ancient maples, Greek revival, and Gothic churches. These buildings and the ancient trees point to a rationalist past. But where do they belong now? A writer as careful as DeLillo places them near an insane asylum, and this dichotomy is jarring. But it goes to a deeper understanding of the writer's purpose, where he begins to magnify a type of insanity, looking at the world with no sense of history, to address a major theme of the novel, where the ideas of the Greeks and the Renaissance, and an honest assessment of history are absorbed into the overwhelming buzz of a postmodern world, into Baudrillard's simulacra. The noise never stops here, and even the traffic, audible in their beds each night, is a murmur around our sleep, as of dead souls babbling at the edge of a dream. How can these characters contemplate history in a serious way? Perhaps they cannot. Adolf Hitler and Elvis Presley are on the same plane at College on the Hill. Evil itself is nothing more than a blurb on a news ticker. Gladney, chairman of the Department of Hitler Studies, insists that the discussion of Hitler is not a question of good and evil. Here, one is reminded of Foucault's contention that madness is a construct of reason. Was Hitler a madman or not? What, then, is Jack Gladney's truth? Nietzsche writes that truth, the type built by Western logic, is the will to be master of the multiplicity of sensations, where we want to give order to the world and create a reality that is constant, without change, deception, or contradiction. But all is dreamlike in Blacksmith, and there is no will to find the truth, no will to master the sensations. One might surmise that DeLillo's characters can only consider their consciousness against the sensations produced by technology and media, and reality, no matter whom has created it, is no longer a consideration. The white noise is the only reality they know. It is quite enough, and they are willingly subsumed by it. Hitler is nothing more than an endless wave of black and white films, and Gladney has edited an impressionistic 80-minute documentary of Der Fuhrer. These images are perhaps indistinguishable from those of Gladney's wife Babette on a fuzzy black and white closed-circuit TV. Our most natural instincts, even the instinct to procreate, are reduced to algebraic patterns and codes as static on a screen in white noise. On page 285, Murray says this to Jack: "You could put your faith in technology. It got you here. It can get you out. Technology is lust removed from nature." The nuclear family, at one time an easily defined unit of social organization, father, mother, children, is muddy and undefined as well. Gladney has several ex-wives, and the various children from various spouses are scattered about an Americanized globe, stuck in the throes of late capitalism, available only through electronic networks. Patriarchy, it would seem, is dead, since Gladney cannot master the splintered relationships within his own family. What is left to deconstruct? One is left to wonder if psychoanalysis can take the reader closer to DeLillo's themes. The value of psychoanalysis in reading white noise should not be understated, and one might apply Lacan's ideas on identity immediately in the novel's opening paragraphs. On page 3, an as yet unnamed first-person narrator sets the scene as college students arrive in Blacksmith. The parents stand sun-dazed near their automobiles, seeing images of themselves in every direction. These people are proud and assured, and this is an important ritual, more important than formal liturgies or laws. Why? This is the power of Lacan's Gestalt, the infant seeing himself in the mirror and finding the imago. Lacan calls it the threshold of the visible world, where we recognize the perfect self in a reflection. There is renewal and communal recognition. And the author pulls us back to our most primal neonatal instincts, because each human being across millennia has encountered his own image and fought through discord, and we move into a temporal dialectic through this drama. As Lacan says, the dialectic will henceforth link the I to socially elaborated situations. The parents, ostensibly here to drop their children into a new semester at College on the Hill, are pulled into an encounter that is at the very core of their identity. But the more important part of this passage might be the idea of liturgies and laws taking a back seat. Throughout the novel, belief systems, including religion, are just another part of the electronic hum. The most spiritual moment Gladney can find is wrapped in advertising. Jack Gladney is not one to easily let go of the modernist search for truth, and Wilcox says that he struggles in an almost Sisyphean way to glean meaning from the surrounding noise of culture. As Gladney watches his daughter sleep, on page 155, Freud's dream interpretations seem to be in order, like they must be significant as she murmurs something from her dream state. What will she reveal? In DeLillo's postmodern world, the narrator will not be disappointed to find that her ecstatic chant is Toyota Celica. She was only repeating some TV voice, Toyota Corolla, Toyota Celica. And Gladney finds splendid transcendence in this utterance. The reader knows that the father's satisfaction paints a disturbing world. If dreams are no more than commercial voiceovers, what of Freud's theories? How are we to interpret this dream? DeLillo does the job for us. The author opens the book with a long list of products. This is the junk of Western civilization. It is simulacra. Blankets, boots and shoes, stationery and books, bicycles, skis, rucksacks, inflated rafts. Gladney's obsession with products runs through the book, and this initial list might read like an REI commercial. When he describes the professors at Centenary Hall in Chapter 3, he calls them an Aristotelianism of bubblegum wrappers and detergent jingles. Even higher education, with all its lofty goals, has been reduced to thinking about products. But one realizes that the products hold no real value beyond outward stimulation. They are another part of the postmodern litany. This opening page, viewed as a whole, weakens the idea of the parents, those delivering the goods and the children, as being engaged in Lacan's temporal dialectic. The fathers are detached and distant, and the September spectacle is reduced to what Wilcox calls representational apparatuses. There is nothing authentic here, which is suggested further by DeLillo's careful words. This raises a question for the reader. Is it only massive insurance coverage that makes the people spiritually akin, a nation? It is clear that even the offspring, bloated with criminal pleasures, are only representations for parents watching an empty ritual, devoid of anything resembling spirituality or fulfillment. One cannot ignore the fact that White Noise is a very funny book, a novel that seems to earn more laughs with each reading. Still, DeLillo's themes are serious, his observations prescient, since technology has taken a much larger place in the 21st century. If we are to believe Baudrillard, the individual will necessarily become lost in a wave of ubiquitous mass media. Secrets, inhibitions, things repressed, these are gone. With the loss of inhibition, where dreams are filled with symbols of multinational corporations, the modernist search for meaning is lost. Communication is the peak experience of postmodern culture, and the deconstruction of rational thought has erased any idea of subjectivity. Baudrillard referred to the end of modernism as a rupture in history. As we consider White Noise, it is most significant to note that the philosopher's postmodern world obliterates boundaries and distinctions between social classes, genders, political leanings, and once autonomous realms of society and culture. All these categorizations lose power in a sort of implosion. Simulations of reality are more real than real, and the ensuing images, codes, and models come to shape our behavior. Spectacle becomes more important than meaning, and this can be seen in the confluence of Elvis Presley and Adolf Hitler in White Noise, two painfully disparate figures with eternal youth and power derived from media images, who seemingly deserve the same rigorous university study. On the surface, this is a ridiculous premise, but it lends an ominous type of humor to the novel. The airborne toxic event is another centerpiece of White Noise, and it is, as presented by DeLillo, not a disaster, but a media event, where the description of the cloud, the words, more than the event itself, is ever-changing and ever-present. DeLillo's concerns and themes are apparent, almost sentence by sentence. While one can apply a psychoanalytic reading to certain passages here, an argument can be made that the unconscious mind, repressed desires and memories, and even our all-too-human drives related to sexuality and violence are absent in White Noise. Murray makes this clear when he tells Jack technology is lust removed from nature. In The Mirror of Production, Jean Baudrillard tells hippies that they should be nostalgic for the spoken word and violence. He writes, "Something in all men profoundly rejoices in seeing a car burn." For Baudrillard, this burning is an act of protest, a speaking out against the establishment. It is a means to an end for post-structuralism. DeLillo's novel makes it clear that a car crash or a burning building is just another opportunity for the spectator. The violent spectacle might be a thing of beauty where art and media and pop culture are all swirling in a stew, and the difference between them is lost. No one in Jack Gladney's world needs or wants to protest. They are far too busy taking in the spectacle. The old human gullibilities have lost the power to sway the citizenry into action. Near the end of White Noise, Jack Gladney speaks with Sister Herman Marie after his own failed attempt at violence. The nun doesn't believe in God. She is pretending. And Jack, somewhat surprised, says, "All the old muddles and quirks, faith, religion, life everlasting, the great old human gullibilities. Your dedication is a pretense?" And it is a pretense, or, as Baudrillard might call it, a simulation. Perhaps what is most important for the reader of White Noise is an acknowledgement of what is not present in the text. Categories, boundaries, and the psychological distinctions that would have inspired Freud to think and write. Belief systems cannot exist in a culture willing to toss them aside, and the most telling piece of humanity, the fear of death, is in a precarious position in White Noise as well. We can hint at the old muddles and quirks, but postmodernism has sacrificed external reality and interiority for a spectacle that seems to make our very humanity and consciousness irrelevant.